Hi everybody! It's been a hot second since we've had like a actual video on this channel. In any case, I decided I was gonna review more books because it's also been a hotter second since I did that. I have 6 books here today, and actually one of them is 4 books in one. I'm gonna start with the book that I did not finish, which was The Bells by Danielle Clayton. I heard amazing things about this book right before it came out. I could not finish it. It is 300 pages of the same things happening over and over and over again, and the last 100 pages is where the plot really gets pushed forward. I just wasn't invested in the characters. I think it's a personal thing because a lot of the other Goodreads reviews are pretty positive. A lot of people are still excited about it. They still really like it. So The Bells is about a group of girls called the Bells, and they are the only people in society who are born beautiful because of some feud between some gods. Camellia is the main character. She's one of the Bells who is chosen by the royal family to be the royal belle, essentially. And there's some mystery going on with the royal family. There's some mystery going on with Camellia's history and her mother. There's a lot going on in this book, but unfortunately I just wasn't invested in Camellia's story. Couldn't get through the last 100 pages. It wasn't worth it for me, personally. The writing is solid. The world is very interesting. I just wasn't interested in the characters. Next, we're gonna move on to the book that I reread, which is Percy Jackson and the Olympians, The Lightning Thief. I've actually only read The Lightning Thief and Sea of Monsters before, and I was trying to get back into this series so that I could eventually get to Magnus Chase and Arusha. I've still only read this one on the reread. If you don't know what Percy Jackson and the Olympians is about, it's about a young boy named Percy Jackson who is the son of Poseidon, and he has to go on, you know, a Greek hero's quest. Even though I knew like all the twists and turns because I've already read this book, I still really enjoyed the reread. I really like Percy. I didn't so much when I first started reading the book the first time. I listened to the soundtrack for the Lightning Thief musical. There's a song called Good Kid that Percy sings that is just heartbreaking. Another book that I reread, except in a different format this time, is Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe. I listened to the audiobook, which I was waiting for my library for 3 months, and then I only got it for 2 weeks. This audiobook I could only listen to on my 7-minute drive to and from work, and so I actually didn't finish the audiobook that Lin-Manuel Miranda reads, but I've read the book before, so I counted it as being finished since I know how it ends. The audiobook is amazing. Lin-Manuel gives very subtle differences to his voice for the different characters. What else can I say except that Benjamin Alirezan's writing is so poetic and beautiful and wonderfully read by Lin-Manuel Miranda. So the last one that I have a physical copy of with me is The Witch Doesn't Burn in This One by Amanda Lovelace, who I have talked about before on this channel when I talked about The Princess Saves Herself in this one. The Witch Doesn't Burn in this one is more of kind of aggressive retaliation in the best way. This one is all about healing, but healing in a way that is very in your face to the people that have hurt you. I love The Witch Doesn't Burn in this one. I think The Princess Saves Herself in this one is only my favorite so far because the princess saves herself in this one. Moving on to books that I don't have physical paper copies of. I read Scythe by Neil Shusterman for a book club with some of my coworkers. My coworkers got really angry at me because I read Goodreads reviews that had spoilers beforehand, and then I read the synopsis on the inside of the dust jacket for Thunderhead, which is the sequel, before we had finished Scythe. The reviews on Goodreads are so polarized. So Scythe is about 2 16-year-olds in a utopian world where nobody dies. So there's a group of people called the Scythes, and they are essentially Grim Reapers. One Scythe, Scythe Faraday, takes on our 2 main characters, Citra and Rowan, as his apprentices, and no other Scythe has ever done this. Lots and lots of stuff happens between Citra and Rowan. Some of it works, some of it doesn't. And the last one is the 4 books that I want to count as one. I listened to the 4 Series of Unfortunate Events audiobooks. I actually listened to the audiobooks because Kathy listened to them and talked about how Tim Curry narrates some of them, and the ones that Tim Curry narrates I absolutely love. Number 4 through 6, I think Kathy said, they're all read by Daniel Handler, and it's just a very different experience, and I personally would rather listen to Tim Curry. Daniel Handler is not by any means a bad narrator. He gets very somber and quiet during some parts that really would need a somber and quiet narrator. But then in the next scene, he'll be yelling, and then it's just too much, or like my navigation would cut in while I'm trying to listen to him whisper to me, and all of a sudden I just hear, "Turn left!" and it's like, it's too much. I read the first 4 books as a kid. The Bad Beginning is when they meet Count Olaf. The Reptile Room is when they're with Uncle Monty, who is still the best. No comparison. Uncle Monty is still, to this day, the best guardian that the Baudelaires have had since their parents passed away. Number 3 is The Wide Window with Aunt Josephine, who I also kind of like, but I realized upon listening this time that Aunt Josephine gaslights the Baudelaires. I wasn't so appreciative of that. I know that to some extent the books are supposed to be about complacent adults who completely ignore child abuse when it's right in front of them, but I want to like Aunt Josephine is the thing. And then 4 is The Miserable Mill, where they're sent to live at the miserable mill, but then Sir puts them to work in a labor camp. If this book wasn't any clearer about being a metaphor for like the Holocaust, I don't know which one would be. I have every intention of reading 5 through 13, maybe in like spurts, because they're not super long, but they're kind of long audiobooks. So that's it. Those are the books that I'm going to talk about this week. That was kind of a lot. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please click the little bell down below so you don't miss any more. If you're not already subscribed to The Princess and the Scrivener, please do so down below, especially if you'd like to see more videos on Disney, intersectional feminism, pop culture critiques, and more. The Scrivener will see you next week. I hope. I really, really want to get to Magnus Chase. I'm obsessed with Thor, can't you tell? I know Thor's like not really in Magnus Chase, but I really want to get there. That's what matters.